obesity conversation is centered on willpower for so long, and the willpower argument can be split into two sectors. If the overweight had willpower, they would just lose weight, and if the overweight had some self-control, they wouldn't have gotten so fat to begin with. Thus, I feel like it's a topic with two major sections, and so I'm going to split it into two videos. This video is going to be about how losing weight long-term is literally impossible, and the diet industry wants you to think it is. If you want to do further reading on each topic, or relentlessly scrutinize my facts, I'll put the source number for each idea right here, and you can find the correlating article in the description after. So if the overweight hate being discriminated against so much, why don't they just lose weight? Whenever this issue is brought up, the side arguing that weight loss is possible will always say a similar thing. That overweight people have no discipline, or that their laziness is sponging up taxes. And to be fair, diet and obesity related illnesses are the highest and second highest healthcare costs in Australia. But the majority's knowledge on weight loss is so heavily dominated by BuzzFeed articles and subliminal diet program advertisements that the actual scientific evidence for it ends up being drowned out. Your scientific proof cannot be an advertisement. Saying these are viable support for the theory that diets work is like saying none of McDonald's customers are overweight because only thin people appear in their commercials. Or thin emojis? Death cannot come soon enough. For those of us that don't get our scientific research from the same place we take quizzes to realize which kitchen utensil we are, have known that diets don't work since the fucking 80s. The failure rate for diets is 95%. That's insane. Even people recovering from heroin addiction only have a failure rate of 70 to 80%, and meth's relapse rate is 88%. This means that losing weight is significantly harder than giving up heroin and meth, drugs known for being the most addictive in the world. But wait, it gets worse. You know how I said that diets have a success rate of 5%? I can assure you that what you think of as a successful diet and what the scientific community assesses as a successful diet are vastly different. As far as science is concerned, a successful weight loss attempt is losing about 10% of your current weight. That means someone with a BMI of exactly 30 will go down to a BMI of 27. They went from borderline obese to extremely overweight. Shit. Break out the party poppers, science. When I said the failure rate for diets was 95%, I meant long term. Anyone can lose a couple kilos and keep it off for a few months. The difficulties in losing weight itself isn't why the failure rate is so high. The problem is keeping the weight off. After you lose weight, your body will go batshit insane trying to get it back. Ghrelin, a gastric hormone that regulates hunger, is likely to be about 20% higher than before you tried to lose weight. Peptide YY, a hormone associated with suppressing hunger, is abnormally low. Your leptin, a hormone associated with suppressing hunger and increasing metabolism, will also likely be lower than it should be. But it doesn't stop with hormones. Once you lose weight, your muscle fibers become more efficient, and you will burn 20 to 25% fewer calories during everyday activity and exercise than someone of the same weight who never went on a diet at all. You're starting to notice a resemblance between your life and some kind of fucked up hunger-related Japanese game show. But wait, it gets worse. Do you want to know the only way to get rid of this eternal hunger suffering? Do you? It's gaining all the weight back and then some. If you only gain back all the weight you originally lost, you are still going to be experiencing this life-occupying obsession with hunger. You actually have to gain back more weight than you originally lost for it to go away. It's why almost everyone that loses weight will regain it back, and 2/3 will gain more weight than they originally lost. Several studies have found that weight loss efforts such as dieting, restrained eating, and exercise for weight loss are strongly associated with future weight gain. As a matter of fact, one study found that a single episode of weight loss increased the risk of becoming overweight by 3 times in women and 2 times in men. This means that it is very, very, very likely that you will gain weight rather than lose it after going on a diet. I know some people are going to quote thermodynamics at me. Don't. I'm not saying losing a significant amount of weight through a diet is physically impossible. I'm saying it's mentally impossible, because dieting, especially the dieting obese people will go through, is literal torture. I'm not saying this as a hyperbole, it is torture. To give you an idea, a very low calorie diet is often prescribed to obese patients by doctors. It is also significantly less than estimates of the daily calorie consumption of Auschwitz prisoners During World War II, when I say less, I mean the very low calorie diet is almost half of the concentration camp diet. To lose weight, we expect people to willingly torture themselves. But isn't it just about willpower, I hear you ask? You know, it's crazy. It turns out that willpower isn't some magical, endless supply of self-control you can use to discriminate against the overweight. It actually has limits to its use. So most people have long-term goals, and there are many short-term goals that stop you from achieving this. All acts of self-regulation draw from a common yet finite pool of resources. Thus, every time you use your willpower for something, it means you aren't using it for something else. If you continuously exert self-control without rest or replenishment, just like a muscle, it will become fatigued through exertion. Remember how earlier I said that overweight people that lose weight are living in a painful vortex of hunger obsession? Because of the constant hunger, saying no to a muffin will increase the amount of self-control required than for someone of the same weight that never went on a diet. But what happens when your willpower meter runs out? You reach the delightful point in your journey called the screw it point. The screw it point is basically when you don't have the mental capacity to think through every single food decision you make anymore, so you don't. You eat everything and you don't care. And it's why periods of dietary restriction are often partnered with long episodes of uncontrolled eating. It's why dieters are 2 to 5 times more likely than non-dieters to develop an eating disorder. Dieting is physically and mentally exhausting to the point where it is impossible to maintain long term. So if diets are a huge failure, why does everyone think they work? It's because if you only focus on one aspect of a cycle, you can warp its successfulness. When someone is on a diet, the overuse of willpower will only cause it to fatigue faster, ultimately moving forward the screw-it point, an inevitable aspect of the cycle of a diet. When dieting is advertised and projected into the world as the ultimate solution, they are showing you the dieting phase, the weight loss that occurs before the weight regain. They are showing a lie. You can literally do this with anything. Look at the cycle of a heroin addict. If we just ignore several parts of the cycle, oh wow, look at that. You get a great high and then nothing else bad happens. What a great drug. This means that in terms of effectiveness as a genuine cure for obesity, dieting is essentially on par with herbal remedies, chanting, and screaming into the black abyss of the night until results occur. Actually, you know what? Those last 3 won't give you more than a 60% chance of gaining weight. So they might actually be more effective than dieting. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying it's impossible to lose weight. If you are lucky enough to get major depression or a severe eating disorder, you could. Although it could also go quite aggressively in the opposite direction. I'm just saying you won't lose any weight on a diet. This is a huge problem in the obesity crisis. We see weight as being infinitely malleable when everyone in the scientific community knows this is not the case. The reality of dieting is even harder to accept as an overweight person or as somebody that feels uncomfortable with their weight. Because it means you are never going to be thin. If you read an article I sourced from the New Yorker, the author of it, after describing the impossibility of weight loss, finishes on the note that she is still optimistic about her own. The diet industry needs people to have this combination of a ridiculous optimism bias and a strong sense of self-blame. This mentality is the crux of the diet industry. And once people realize diets don't work, that multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry is going to collapse. So they need to propagate this "it's all about diet and exercise" lie to maintain profits. It's one of the most clever and fruitful marketing schemes of our time, and we just love to lap it up. And even though I know that diets don't work, I still find myself being sucked into success stories, controlled by my own optimism bias. It's why I think that even after watching this video, people will still go out and start a new diet program. The reality is just too depressing and helpless to accept. Now I know that some people who watch this video are going to say, but maybe if they didn't want to deal with losing weight, they shouldn't have gained it in the first place. Nope. The process of gaining weight is a hellfire of torment too, which I'm going to explain in part 2 of the obesity conversation next time.